Hello, it's Christmas Day. We just lit the Christ candle in the Advent wreath, and we're going to finish the last of the book, Ishtar's Odyssey. This chapter is titled Messiah. Salamar, Bosan, and Jodhpur had all changed into their very finest clothes with turbans atop their heads. Ishtar quickly threw on the formal tunic Salamar had brought for him. At the edge of Bethlehem, the small party tied their horses to posts, and Ishtar led them on foot through the twists and turns of the narrow streets. Soon they arrived at the inn of Hazra and saw that the streets and the ramp down to the stable were full of shepherds buzzing about the events of the evening. When the shepherds saw the three magi approaching them, they stopped talking and opened a path down to the stable. Several lamps had been lit and hung around the stable. As Ishtar entered, he could see that it was full of people. In the center of it all was a tiny baby, wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. At once Ishtar's heart swelled with love for the child. He could never, not that night or any other, say exactly what it was that filled him with such adoration for the baby. But what he felt was real, and what he knew was that this indeed was the Son of God. Salamar, Jodhpur, and Bosan stepped forward, dropped to their knees, and bowed before the babe. They held out the gifts they'd been carrying for so many months and so many miles: a treasure chest of gold, an urn of frankincense, and boxes of myrrh. "We bring you greetings and tribute from His Highness Sheikh Konark of Amaranth," Salamar said softly to the child, "and his prayer that your wisdom and compassion may shine on all people, now and for all generations to come." The man and woman Ishtar had helped earlier were sitting next to the manger and now thanked the Magi for such generous gifts. Salamar and his brothers rose, and that's when introductions began. First, Ishtar introduced his father to Mary and Joseph, and then Jotham introduced his parents to Ishtar and Salamar. There were introductions from Bartholomew and his whole family, and Tabitha and hers, and of course Nathan the sometimes fool was in the middle of the whole thing. For some time they all celebrated together and speculated on the wondrous things this child king would do. Then Salamar turned to his son and said quietly, "Ishtar, it is time for us to leave before we burden our hosts beyond their hospitality." Ishtar was sad, but Salamar assured him they would visit again the next day before heading back to Amaranth. So they said their goodbyes and then mounted their horses and followed the road back up the hill. Salamar surprised Ishtar with a package of baklava, sulbia, and gaz, which was passed around to all the men. "So, tell me, my son," Salamar said as Ishtar rode alongside him, "what have you learned on this long journey?" "I have learned that there are not as many ridiculous things in the world as I thought," Ishtar answered. "There are just things I do not know yet." "And what are some of those ridiculous things you now believe to be true?" Ishtar thought for a moment until the truthful answer appeared inside his brain. He was afraid of that answer, afraid of what his father would think, afraid that his father would be angry with him. But then he looked back down the hill where he could see over the rooftops the little stable still glowing in the night, still surrounded by people. He saw through the door, over the tops of the heads of the worshippers, to that rough little manger, and he saw the tiny baby swaddled inside. Then he threw back his shoulders, turned to his father and said, "I believe, Father, that baby Jesus is the Messiah of all people, the King of all kings, the Son of the one true God. For unto you is born a Savior, Christ the Lord, who came to earth to tell you and show you and help you believe the great and selfless love God has for you and that you can have for others." Merry Christmas.